Today we're diving into the fascinating world of clinical research, focusing on two important study designs, single-blind and double-blind studies. These methods are essential tools researchers use to ensure their findings are reliable and unbiased. But what do these terms really mean and why are they so crucial in medical science? In this video we'll break down the basics, explore the differences, and see how these designs help advance healthcare. Let's start by understanding the purpose of blinding in research and why it matters for both scientists and patients. Blinding is a technique used in clinical trials to prevent bias. When people involved in a study know which treatment they're receiving, their expectations or behaviors can unintentionally influence the results. For example, a patient who knows they're getting a new drug might report feeling better, even if the drug has no effect. Similarly, researchers might interpret results differently if they know who received which treatment. By keeping certain information hidden or blinded, studies can produce more trustworthy and objective results. This is why blinding is a cornerstone of high-quality clinical research. Single-blind study is a type of clinical trial where only one group, usually the participants, doesn't know which treatment they're receiving. The researchers, however, are aware of who's getting the real treatment and who's getting a placebo or control. This setup helps prevent participants' expectations from affecting the results, but it doesn't fully eliminate the risk of bias since researchers still know the treatment assignment. Single-blind studies are often used when double-blinding isn't practical, but researchers must be careful to minimize their own influence on the outcomes. Single-blind study, participants are randomly assigned to different groups, such as a treatment group and a placebo group. They don't know which group they're in, which helps ensure their responses are genuine and not influenced by expectations. Researchers, on the other hand, keep track of who is in each group. This knowledge can sometimes lead to subtle cues or behaviors that might influence the study's results, so strict protocols are put in place to minimize this risk. Single-blind studies are a practical compromise when full blinding isn't possible. Imagine a clinical trial testing a new headache medication. Participants are given either the new drug or a sugar pill, but they don't know which one they're receiving. The researchers, however, do know. This setup helps ensure that any changes in symptoms are due to the treatment itself, not the participants' beliefs about what they're taking. While this design reduces some bias, it's still possible for researchers to unintentionally influence the results, which is why double-blind studies are often preferred when possible. Single-blind studies are valuable, but they have limitations. Since researchers know which participants are in each group, there's a risk they might consciously or unconsciously influence the study's outcome. For example, they might give more attention to those receiving the treatment or interpret results in a biased way. These risks highlight the importance of careful study design and strict protocols to minimize potential bias. Despite these challenges, single-blind studies remain a useful tool, especially when double-blinding isn't feasible. Now let's move on to double-blind studies. In this design, neither the participants nor the researchers know who's receiving the actual treatment and who's getting the placebo. This approach is considered the gold standard in clinical research because it minimizes bias from both sides. By keeping everyone in the dark, double-blind studies ensure that the results are as objective and reliable as possible. Let's take a closer look at how this works in practice. A double-blind study, both participants and researchers are kept unaware of who's receiving the treatment and who's getting the placebo. This is usually achieved by using codes or third-party administrators who handle the assignments. The goal is to eliminate any influence that expectations or knowledge might have on the study's results. By removing these sources of bias, double-blind studies provide the most reliable evidence about whether a treatment truly works. Say researchers are testing a new allergy medication. Participants are randomly assigned to receive either the real drug or a placebo, and neither they nor the researchers know which is which. The assignments are managed by a third party, and the codes are only revealed after the study is complete. This way, neither expectations nor subtle cues can influence the results, making the findings much more trustworthy and scientifically sound. Double-blind studies are highly valued in clinical research because they offer the best protection against bias. By keeping both participants and researchers unaware of group assignments, these studies ensure that the results are based solely on the effects of the treatment itself. This leads to more accurate, reliable, and credible findings, which are essential for making informed decisions about new medications and therapies. While double-blind studies are the gold standard, they're not always easy to conduct. Sometimes it's impossible to hide the treatment from participants or researchers, especially if the treatment has obvious side effects or requires special procedures. In these cases, researchers must find creative ways to minimize bias, such as using objective measurements or independent evaluators. Despite these challenges, double-blind studies remain the preferred method whenever possible. Let's compare single-blind and double-blind studies side by side. In single-blind studies, only the participants are unaware of their group, while in double-blind studies, both participants and researchers are kept in the dark. Double-blind studies offer stronger protection against bias, but single-blind studies are often more practical in certain situations. Both designs play important roles in clinical research, depending on the specific needs and challenges of the study. Single-blind studies are often used when it's not possible to keep researchers unaware of the treatment assignments. For example, if a treatment requires special handling or preparation, researchers need to know who is receiving it. In these cases, single-blind designs still help reduce participant bias, even if some risk of researcher bias remains. Researchers must take extra care to follow strict protocols and minimize their influence on the outcome. Double-blind studies are ideal when it's possible to keep both participants and researchers unaware of group assignments. This design is especially important in drug trials, where expectations can strongly influence results. By eliminating both participant and researcher bias, double-blind studies provide the most reliable evidence about a treatment's effectiveness. Whenever feasible, researchers aim to use this design to ensure the highest quality data. Placebos play a key role in both single-blind and double-blind studies. Placebo is a substance with no therapeutic effect, used to compare against the real treatment. By including a placebo group, researchers can determine whether the treatment's effects are real or simply due to participants' expectations. Placebos help ensure that the study's results are valid and not influenced by psychological factors. Randomization is another important feature of blinded studies. Participants are randomly assigned to different groups, such as treatment or placebo, to ensure that the groups are similar and that the results are not biased by pre-existing differences. Randomization, combined with blinding, creates a strong foundation for reliable and unbiased research findings. Drug trials are one of the most common settings for single-blind and double-blind studies. By keeping participants and sometimes researchers unaware of who is receiving the real drug, these studies help ensure that the results reflect the drug's true effects. This is especially important when testing new medications, as unbiased results are critical for regulatory approval and patient safety. Blinding can also be used in trials of medical devices, though it's often more challenging. For example, if a device has a noticeable appearance or function, it may be difficult to keep participants or researchers unaware of which group they're in. In these cases, researchers use creative strategies such as sham devices or independent evaluators to maintain as much blinding as possible. Blinding isn't limited to drug or device trials. It's also used in behavioral studies where participants might receive different types of therapy or interventions. By keeping participants unaware of which group they're in, researchers can better assess the true effects of the intervention, free from the influence of expectations or placebo effects. Ethics play a crucial role in designing blinded studies. Researchers must ensure that participants are fully informed about the study's procedures and potential risks, even if they don't know which group they're in. Informed consent is a cornerstone of ethical research, and participants have the right to withdraw at any time. Balancing the need for blinding with ethical responsibilities is a key challenge for researchers. Sometimes it becomes necessary to reveal or unblind the treatment assignments before a study is complete. This might happen if a participant experiences a serious side effect and the researchers need to know which treatment they received. Unblinding is done carefully and only when absolutely necessary to protect both the participant's safety and the integrity of the study. Maintaining the integrity of a blinded study requires careful planning and strict protocols. Researchers must ensure that blinding is preserved throughout the study and that any necessary unblinding is documented and justified. Regular monitoring and audits help ensure that the study remains unbiased and that the results are trustworthy. In publishing the results of blinded studies, researchers must clearly describe the blinding procedures used. This transparency allows other scientists to assess the quality of the study and the reliability of its findings. Accurate reporting is essential for advancing medical knowledge and building trust in research. Regulatory agencies, such as the FDA, often require blinded studies as part of the approval process for new drugs and treatments. Blinded studies provide the most reliable evidence about a treatment's safety and effectiveness, which is essential for protecting public health. Without high-quality blinded studies, new treatments may not be approved for use. Peer review is another important step in the research process. When blinded studies are submitted for publication, independent experts review the methods and results to ensure they meet high scientific standards. Blinding helps ensure that the findings are credible and that the research can be trusted by the scientific community and the public. Meta-analyses combine the results of multiple studies to draw broader conclusions. Studies that use blinding are often given more weight in these analyses because their results are less likely to be biased. This highlights the importance of blinding not just for individual studies, but for the entire body of scientific evidence. While blinding is most commonly associated with clinical research, it's also used in other fields such as psychology, education, and even product testing. The goal is always the same: to reduce bias and ensure that results are as objective as possible. Blinding is a universal tool for improving the quality of scientific research. There are some common misconceptions about blinding in research. For example, some people think that blinding is only necessary for drug trials, or that it's always possible to blind everyone involved. In reality, blinding is a flexible tool that can be adapted to many different types of studies, and researchers must carefully consider when and how to use it. Blinding can affect the participant experience in a study. Some participants may feel anxious about not knowing which treatment they're receiving, while others appreciate the fairness and objectivity it brings. Researchers must communicate clearly and provide support to ensure that participants feel comfortable and informed throughout the study. Blinding doesn't end when the study is over. In many cases, data analysts are also kept unaware of group assignments until the analysis is complete. This helps prevent bias in how the data is interpreted and ensures that the results are based solely on the evidence. Blinding at every stage of the process strengthens the study's credibility. Studies that use blinding tend to produce more reliable and consistent outcomes. By reducing the influence of expectations and bias, blinded studies provide a clearer picture of a treatment's true effects. This is why blinding is considered a hallmark of high-quality research and is strongly recommended by experts. Blinding can also impact the sample size needed for a study. Because blinding reduces bias, it can help ensure that even smaller studies produce meaningful results. However, larger sample sizes are still preferred to increase the reliability and generalizability of the findings. The duration of a blinded study can vary widely, depending on the treatment being tested and the outcomes being measured. Some studies last only a few weeks, while others may continue for years. Maintaining blinding over long periods requires careful planning and ongoing vigilance from the research team. Blinded studies can be more expensive and complex to conduct than open-label studies, where everyone knows the treatment assignments. The extra steps required to maintain blinding, such as using placebos, third-party administrators, and coded data, add to the cost and complexity. However, these investments are worthwhile for the increased reliability and credibility of the results. Advances in technology are making it easier to conduct blinded studies. Electronic data systems, automated randomization, and secure coding help maintain blinding and reduce the risk of errors. Technology also allows for more efficient monitoring and data analysis, further improving the quality of clinical research. Blinded studies are conducted all over the world in many different healthcare settings. International collaboration and standardized protocols help ensure that blinded studies produce high-quality, comparable results, no matter where they're conducted. This global approach is essential for advancing medical science and improving health outcomes worldwide. Blinding helps build trust between researchers and participants. When participants know that the study is designed to be fair and unbiased, they're more likely to trust the results and feel confident in the research process. This trust is essential for recruiting participants and ensuring the success of clinical trials. As clinical research continues to evolve, blinding will remain a key tool for ensuring the quality and reliability of scientific evidence. New methods and technologies will make it easier to conduct blinded studies, even in challenging situations. Researchers will continue to refine their approaches, always striving to reduce bias and improve the accuracy of their findings. Blinded studies play a vital role in protecting public health. By providing reliable evidence about the safety and effectiveness of new treatments, these studies help ensure that only the best therapies are approved and made available to patients. The rigorous standards of blinded research benefit everyone, from individual patients to entire communities. Medical students and healthcare professionals are taught about the importance of blinding in research. Understanding how to design, conduct, and interpret blinded studies is a key skill for anyone involved in clinical research. This knowledge helps ensure that future generations of researchers continue to uphold the highest standards of scientific integrity. Patient advocacy groups often encourage the use of blinded studies to ensure that new treatments are evaluated fairly and objectively. By supporting high-quality research, these groups help protect patients' interests and promote the development of safe and effective therapies. Funding agencies often prioritize studies that use blinding, recognizing the value of unbiased and reliable results. Grants and resources are more likely to be awarded to researchers who design high-quality blinded studies, further encouraging the use of this important method in clinical research. Blinded studies have driven many of the most important advances in medicine and healthcare. By reducing bias and increasing the reliability of research findings, blinding has helped scientists discover new treatments, improve patient care, and save lives. The ongoing use of blinding will continue to fuel scientific progress for years to come. Sum up, single-blind and double-blind studies are essential tools in clinical research. Single-blind studies help reduce participant bias, while double-blind studies offer the strongest protection against both participant and researcher bias. Both designs play important roles in advancing medical science, and their careful use ensures that research findings are trustworthy and reliable. As we look to the future, the importance of blinding in clinical research will only continue to grow. New technologies and innovative study designs will make it easier to conduct high-quality blinded studies, even in challenging situations. By understanding and applying these methods, researchers can continue to make discoveries that improve health and save lives. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of single-blind and double-blind studies.